Hey guys, Matthew here from Goodhew Electrical and Solar. So today I'm just going to quickly run through and explain to you guys a little bit about how exactly solar works and why like 13 to 15 kilowatts is like the most common size. Especially because a lot of you guys that have a 6.6 kilowatt system that maybe didn't have a bill 4 or 5 years ago and now are starting to get a bill. This will sort of explain why, with how all the price changes and everything in the industry have changed, that about 5 years ago a 6.6 was the most common size and would wipe most bills, which is now why we're doing a bit bigger systems, and like a 15 kilowatt system with roughly a 24 kilowatt battery will wipe most people's usage. Obviously, depending on usage, you might need to go a bit bigger, but for the majority of households, that's all you really need. Because the way things have sort of changed a lot is about 3-4 years ago even, you were still getting like a 15-cent feed-in tariff. So it didn't matter when you were making power, as long as you made about 40 kilowatts a day, you'd almost wipe your bill because you were selling it for 15 and you're only buying it back for like low 20s. But now your feed-ins are like 3 cents and you're buying it back for 35, and after 4 o'clock you're buying it back for like 65 cents in some cases. So now it's all about how much power you're making at the exact time that you're doing stuff. So when we look at a house now for like our layouts, that's why ideally, like this is like an overall layout of a house here. Obviously this is north, east and west. Back in the day, it used to always be about just trying to get all your panels north. And that was because in the middle of the day, between 10 and 2, that's when your solar is pumping. So even in winter, as the sun gets lower in the sky, a north-facing roof will produce the most kilowatts per day total. But it's no longer just about how many kilowatts a day you're making. It's about how much power you're making in the morning or the afternoon at like the exact time that you're trying to run stuff. So, because with the system, if it makes 40 kilowatts in a day, literally half of that is made between 10 and 2. So obviously with the way the sun works, any panels on the east, they're gonna come on first thing in the morning. So if you don't have any panels on the east, your solar's gonna sort of ramp up slowly, get to 10. By having some panels on the east, you're just increasing this sort of morning production. So then you're actually putting your washing machine on, dishwasher, getting up early, making breakfast and things like that. The more panels you got on the east, the quicker this is going to ramp up. Because otherwise in the morning, as you're turning things on, if your solars are only slowly ramping up and you're not making enough to cover your usage, you're buying your power at like 35 cents. But generally we'll do a little bit less on the east than the west, just depends on your roof layout obviously. Because in the afternoon, that's when everyone's getting home from work, school, turning on aircon, starting to use a heap more power. And especially in summer, that's when all your summer bills jump up. So without any panels on your western face, after 2 o'clock, your solar really sort of drops off. And a lot of the times by 4 o'clock, it's not doing much. If you really load up that western roof face now, in the middle of summer, obviously in winter, you're getting dark by 4 o'clock, but in summer, your panels will still be working until about sort of 6:30 at night in the middle of summer. So that means you can actually run an aircon and do all sorts of other things in your house for free before you even start touching your battery. So, and because a lot of you guys too that have an older system, sometimes they'll only be on the north and the east or northwest, or sometimes they'll only be on east or west as well. So if all of your solar is on one side of the house, the issue is that if say everything's on the west, then in the morning you're buying all your power. And you're no longer selling it and buying it for even a remotely similar price these days. That gap is now massive. So that's why ideally we'll be doing all 3 directions if you can. But especially if you've got solar at the moment only on one side of your house and you're wondering why you're starting to get a pretty big power bill, that's gonna be why. And like I said, especially after 4 o'clock when you're paying the higher price for power, that's where loading up that western roof face is really starting to save you a lot of money. So when we'll do a quote, exactly, it's not always looking at just how much of a day it's made. Because even like a 13 kilowatt system, 15 kilowatt system, if you're saying, oh yeah, and someone might make like 70 kilowatts a day, that's way more than like I use. Yes, but half of that's made at this time. So when you're actually trying to use your power in the afternoon, it doesn't matter that you made a heap here and you sold it back for 3 cents. It's about how much you're actually making when you're trying to run stuff in the afternoon. And then like I said, if you do around like that 24 kilowatt battery, if you don't have any panels in the west, you're gonna need a bigger battery. But if you can load this western roof up, it means you're not even gonna start touching your battery for another few hours. And then same thing in the morning, you're gonna start running from your solar earlier in the morning so you can get away with a bit smaller battery. Yeah, and just to let you guys know as well, if you do already have panels on, one direction or 2 directions of your house, depending on the age of the system, we may not need to rip it all off. You may be able to leave that and just add on, because the 10 kilowatt inverters these days actually have 4 inputs for your solar. So we can plug your existing solar in, leave that on in a lot of cases, and just add to it. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to rip off what you got as well. And also for everyone that's worried about blackout protection, obviously the bigger your system, in crappy weather, it's still running better as well. So you're better off having bigger solar, because if you've got small solar system but a massive battery, that's not going to help in a blackout either. But yeah, that's just one of the ways we sort of look at a roof, and hopefully gives you a bit more of an understanding as to why now everyone is trying to do these layouts with all 3 directions, rather than it always used to be about north was the best. So yeah, no, I hope that sort of explains a bit for you. And then obviously it's going to be a bit dependent on your roof, and when you're using power, you just kind of work with the roof you've got. But if you have a roof that allows you to do that, then yeah, that's the optimal direction and setup for solar these days. So yeah, give us a call and we can come out, have a proper look at your house and look at it and go from there. All right, thanks guys.